Dr. Cutter with the Chainsaw Hospital, and today we're going to be working on this Husqvarna 51, and this is pretty exciting. This was donated to the channel by Corey, and Corey, he knows that it is scored, the piston and or cylinder is scored, and he did not want to put the time into fixing it, so he donated it to the channel, and we are very grateful. Thank you, Corey. So let's get started with this project, and the first thing I'm going to do is totally disassemble this thing because it's got some barn wear where it's just sitting in a shed or a barn or something where they had a lot of dirt blowing around and dust, and it might have sat up underneath of a shelf where there was, you know, a lot of debris and things floating around. But either way, we're going to tear this thing down. We're going to clean it all up before we even get started fixing anything because it is so disgusting. That's, I think, the right way to do that. So it's got a barn chain on it. It's got 325 pitch chain and drive sprocket, I'm sure, hopefully, and bar tip. So that's good start, you know, that we could change it over to 3/8, but we'll probably stick with the 325. And I've got a box of parts here that I have collected over the years of fooling around with 55s and things. And so I've got a used muffler in there and a cylinder with a piston. And we're going to inspect all this stuff. I probably won't need there's the base gasket flopping around in there, if you can see that. So there's that. We probably won't reuse that, but we'll see. But either way, I've got some parts. I don't know if they're any good or not. Some of these were donated. Some of them had came off of other saws that had problems or whatever. So this 51 was part of the poll that I had taken on the Chainsaw Hospital YouTube page. And the poll was met with some responses. And I appreciate that from all of you that did. And the 51 series, I had actually gotten the most feedback about and requests to actually do that. So the reason we're picking this one out of the poll was because it had the most responses. So that's why we're going to go ahead and get started with this one. And then we've got some other ones on the shelf back here. You can see them all. All these on this shelf don't run, so we've got all kinds of projects to work on, and all these up here do. So, but either way, we've got lots of projects, and there's other options for Husqvarna stuff back there too. So, either way, so yeah, so let's get in here and get this thing cleaned up so we know where we're at, and we can do kind of an autopsy on the 51 and see what let loose, if anything, which I'm pretty sure it's scored. So, but either way, so let's get in here and get this thing cleaned up. We're going to start with removing this top cover and just seeing what all we have. Honestly, I have not even been in this thing, so I don't know what's in here. You can see the dust flying off of it. So you guys are going to learn along the way with me. So look at that, just wow. So there we go. Okay, so it is complete. And this says it's or at least this top cover was cast in 94. So this is a 94 top cover, and we'll probably follow that 94. Yeah, like I said, I haven't even wiped off the tag here to see. I would agree with that. Yeah, it looks like the tag here, the first number is a 4, so 94. So 1994 Husqvarna 51. All right, so we've learned that much already. And it looks like we've got some spider webs in here. Not sure if these are active or not, but either way, they're not going to be in there anymore. So there's a start there. Let's go ahead and get this recoil cover off. And looks like we're missing one screw here. So just taking kind of a mental note about what is missing. These are slotted screws, flat blade, standard screws. or metric screws, I'm sure, but flat heads. And I'm just using a 3/16, I believe. It might be a quarter screwdriver, but either way, it's getting them out no problem at all. Well, that's not getting that one out. Alright, got the last one out of there. These are not captive, but they are the same length. And I'll have to dig around and see if I've got another one scavenged from another saw. We'll go ahead and start a emesis pan here and drop our screws in there. And let's see what's behind here. Alright, that looks fairly complete. These are stuck. That needs to be loosened up. Yeah, that would have never engaged like that. I didn't even pull the thing over, but I'm sure that's why it wasn't. And that's all sticky. Yeah, it's just going to need some cleaning up here. So we'll take this all apart and make sure that screen is, or the spring, there's a wasp in there. Make sure that spring is all cleaned up and ready to go. It did come with this custom cut scabbard. Not sure what somebody had going on with that, but that's what they wanted. So we'll put that on the shelf behind us for now, because we won't need that for a while. So we've got our air conductor here. Just piles and piles and piles of trash. Probably will need AV mounts, maybe not. I'm just pushing down on the bar right here and holding the handle. It's not really moving a whole lot. The throttle is sticking. I'm just noticing that. Back here you'll see the trigger is moving, but the throttle is not retracting, so I'm sure that's just completely packed full of junk. Let's go ahead and get this bar and chain off. And side cover. Let's see what goodies are hidden behind here. Okay, here we go. Pull that off. All right, well, the clutch is there. This is looking pretty complete. Just maybe we'll pull that muffler and take a look at that. I've got a chain that says K3 on the drive link. I'm not super familiar with what a K3 is. At Poland? Somebody's put a Poland. Oh, Carlton. Oh, it's got a Carlton chain on there. Okay. Here's our bar. And this says it is a 58 gauge is what it says. A 58 gauge 325 72 drive length, made in Norway. So I guess this maybe was a OEM Husqvarna bar made in Norway. Okay, so we'll just hang this up over here. We'll go through all that later. And looks like, tell you what, let's go ahead and pull the muffler off, at least what we can see. And looks like this spark arrestor screen is not installed. I did notice some insect activity here clogging up the adjustment jet holes. That's real common with, you know, with saws kept in a barn kind of thing, which is one good reason to keep your spark arrestor screen, or if you're running a pipe and you're parking one in a shop or a barn or something, go ahead and plug that exhaust hole up and keep your air filter installed, because I have seen those insects just get and pack dirt into everything they can possibly pack it into, and I'm surprised this isn't full. Usually this gets filled up pretty quick with the bugs there. So got an 8mm here, and I've got these are 8mm nuts on here, so let's go ahead and loosen these up. Thankfully they came off easy. Those were probably drenched in oil, which is what it looks like is covered all over this thing here. Put those in our emesis pan. So let's see, might need to loosen that up a little bit. Got a 4mm Allen T-handle. There we go. We should be able to get enough movement on this muffler. There we go. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a screen in there, but it thankfully does not look like there's any bug activity in there either. So we might be in luck. So let's see how open this muffler is. Got a flashlight here. Not very. Well, it is. Looks like there are some holes in there that they've got the exhaust going kind of through, but it looks pretty clean in there. It's not full of rust. There is, looks like some hay or something might have blown in there, so we'll make sure we blow this out with compressed air or something like that and get that cleaned out. So we'll put that in our to be worked on later pan, and this handle can go in there too, and this top cover. Try to keep the workbench cleaned off. So what do we have here? Let's take a look at this piston. What do we have here? Let's see. So it looks to be, as suspected, completely trashed. Yeah, okay. So this is toast. No doubt about that. So we have zero compression, or what we have is not nearly enough for it to run. We're not even going to try to get it to run. So that's okay. We will fix it, because these 51, 55s are worth putting a few minutes time into. And you can just see the amount of gunk built up in here. It looks like some cat hair or something. So what we'll do is, you know, I'm really tempted to go ahead and just pull the carburetor, or pull the cylinder and carburetor together. That might be what we end up doing, and then we can just clean everything up. We're going to pop the air filter off like that. We'll probably keep this air filter. It doesn't look terrible, you know. So we'll hold on to that. So we've got, looks like a bolt here. Oh, that's right. This has got the this has got the intake dam and the little rubber boot. So we will have to pull the carburetor and everything off before we get the cylinder out of there. So let's go ahead and check out this spark plug. We're just going to go all in with this. Here we go. So when I go to my plan for cleaning this thing up and all the other parts are to pressure wash everything. I've had really good luck with doing that. I mean, that's what the spark plug looks like. So probably we'll get a new one. I mean, there's no reason to run this. Well, there might be. I mean, we could see how long it lasts. Looks like it might not be gapped exactly right, but that's okay. We can fix that too. So we've got, looks like some 4mm bolts here and one here, two of them on the carburetor. 4mm head bolts, socket head cap screws, and then we've got one down here. Alright, that's what that looks like. And then we've got two really coarse thread screws going through the carburetor and into the plate that's right here that holds the carburetor onto that. I think I might be, no, yeah, that is how it works. Okay, so the 41 and the 55, 51, 55, they're all the same with this same block, and then the carburetor bolts to that. But when you put the assembly down, it's a whole lot easier to take this part off with this part, and also to install the cylinder and this plate all together with the boot installed already. And the impulse comes through with a little rubber boot inside of there too. So there's that. We can pull this off, get this out of the way. Gasket just fell out, so we'll probably get another one or make another one of these. This is an EM. I don't know what that says, but it looks like it's probably original. I don't think this saw has ever been worked on, from what I gather. Just from looking at everything, it looks like everything is all the way it was from the factory, and this fuel line looks like it's still, you know, I didn't even check to see if it has gas in it. Let's see if it has gas in it. No, thankfully it's completely empty. Okay. So, but the fuel filter is in there, so it's all in one piece. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way. There's the throttle that was sticking, or something was sticking in this system, but either way we'll get that back in there in a little bit. And we've got fuel line off of there. Carburetor, I'm sure we'll have to go through that, but it is a WT 170, Walbro WT 170 on here, so we'll make sure we get a kit for that. Put that over there, and it looks like now we'll be able to go ahead and get this cylinder and plate off. So that'll be nice. We can go ahead and do a good inspection of this cylinder, and I'll maybe once we have this off, I'll show you what the other cylinder and piston I have. And I don't think I'll be able to use that piston, but there's what screw came out of there. And then we've got another one right over here. Exact same length, thread pitch and everything. So alright, so that loosens up this plate. And what I like to do next is go ahead and pull this cylinder off. I think we can get these studs out of there. It's probably a gasket holding it, but either way, we'll go ahead and get this cylinder off. And now that we have this loose, we can go ahead and pull everything off in one shot. Let's see if we can get in there and get these loosened up. So I've got my 4mm, and I've taken the ball end is not on here anymore. It's just the regular end, and I've ground it down flat so it fits really nice into these heads. So I don't want to strip any heads out. That's the main objective. And next up, we've got one back here, if I can ever get the Allen wrench in there. Man, that is tight. And like I said, do not want to strip that out. There it goes. All right. Good. Hopefully that was the hardest one. Man. All right. I've got that one. What do we got here? This is the last one, right? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. We got them all. Probably the hardest part of taking this whole thing down is just loosening these screws up. Okay, I think I've got them all out. There's what the cylinder bolts look like. So let's see if we can, oh, missing one somewhere. Okay, that one's definitely out. That one's definitely out. All right, so we got them all loosened up. Here we go. Okay. There's the rest of the bolts and the cylinder, and that looks pretty rough in there. So don't know if we'll be reusing this one or trying to clean it up, and we might. I got a 46 ZD3, and this other one that I've got here is a 46 ZD3 also. So these two, this was a 51 and this is a 51. Open port, you know, everything looks the same, completely the same on those. So piston, let's get a good look at that piston now. Oh yeah, oh yeah, wow. Yeah, I'm contemplating, you guys let me know down below. This will come out in parts. This will be pretty much the end of part 1. Part 2, we'll go ahead and pressure wash this thing and clean it all up, and then you know, reassembly part 3. But let me know down below that yes, go ahead and make it a 55, or go ahead and keep it a 51 with this 46 millimeter. I believe that's what that means. It might measure out actually to 47 millimeters. I think what 1.77 is 47 millimeters. I've got 1.77 right there, close enough. So I believe that's 46.9 something. But either way, make sure we get the right piston for this, or we might just get a whole new top end and piston altogether. I've heard that they are very affordable and available. So either way, so there we go. We got this thing all tore down, and we're ready to get this piston off of here. And like I said, pressure wash this cylinder, or the crankcase, and the tank handle, and all that good stuff. I'll plug off the fuel line. Won't get any water down in there. It probably will anyways, but we'll do the best we can. Pressure wash this, and yeah, so very exciting. So that kind of fell off. I might put a little better squeeze on that. Okay, there we go. Before we get going too far, I'm going to try to lube up these dogs with some of this Kroil. Got this Cano Kroil here. So let's see if we can put a couple drops right there and right there. You saw how stiff they were before. Let's see if the Kroil can deep creep and get these guys working. There we go. That's all it needed. Just need a little lube on there. Corey is all cleaned up, looking a whole lot better. Look at this area right here. Look at the handle. The pressure washer did a great job cleaning this up, and I'll put in a few clips right here of that. And you can see it, it just blasts away all that gunk. And then what was left, I actually used a rag covered in a little bit of gas. And I think a lot of the stuff that was on here was actually pine sap, where it had just hardened up, and that gasoline cut through that sap and made it a little bit more, you know, loose. It loosened it up. So we got that done, and you can see we got the old piston off, and I just stuck the old piston down in the old cylinder here. This is the stuff that's all scratched up. And then I've got that other piston right here that we cleaned up a little bit. I knocked off those high spots for the piston, and I put this through my parts washer, and you can see it got all that gunk off. And then this cylinder is the other good cylinder that I had that had a nice clean bore, and we're going to use this one for sure. So I'm just going to try to get this thing running with these parts, and this went through the parts washer too, and you can see how well it cleaned out all that old gas varnish that was in the transfers right here and over here on this side right here. So all that turned out great, and it got most of the gunk off, but there's still some left in this area here. I'm not worried about it, but it did clean out the combustion chamber mostly also too, so I'm really good with that. So we're not going to do anything other than you know, just kind of clean these down one more time and make sure there's no debris on there. And I did remove the ring here when I cleaned everything out, and I just put it back in there. So that should be ready to go. I cleaned up the wrist pin. This had a lot of gunk on it too, and I made sure that it'll fit, and it's nice and tight in the piston there. So we're ready to go, and we've got our bearing here. We're going to clean this out real good and put a little bit of oil on that. And so everything is clean. Oh, here's the side cover right here. That turned out really nice. And the top cover I was especially actually impressed with, because if you look at that, turned out really nice. It was in really bad shape. Some of this stuff on the inside I couldn't get, but most of it I did. So there you go. So either way, we got that cleaned up, looking good there. So let's get you in here a little bit closer, and I think for part 2 we're going to cover installing the piston and the cylinder back on. I think that'll pretty much take up what we need to try to get done for now, and then it'll be ready to put the carburetor, exhaust, you know, and everything kind of put back together. And we've still got some work to do on the bar and the chain, so that's another, you know, project in itself, just to get those ready to go. So I probably do have a good bar and chain I could stick on here, but you know what, let's just get those. And I've got it hanging on the wall, that's why I'm pointing over there. So let's go ahead and get in here a little bit closer onto the chassis, and we'll wipe it down a little bit better and put a little, I put a little oil in there already just to kind of get it ready to go. But we'll get in here a little closer and see if we can start getting this thing together. Pretty neat, huh? Oh, and I went ahead and put the side cover on here, the recoil, you can see, and we're still missing that one bolt that was missing already. But I just wanted to get that in place, and that's all cleaned up too. You can see how nice that turned out. So let's get in here a little bit closer and get started with the piston and the cylinder. So I've got everything cleaned off and sitting over here on this nice clean rag. So you can see we've got piston is wiped down and as clean as I can get it. And here's our little intake tube, or impulse tubes, and you can see this one ripped when I pulled it out of one of the cylinders, so that's trashed. But this one survived, so I'll probably end up getting some new ones of these, but for now this will work, and that's what we've got there. So that, and then I've got the intake pipe, they call it. I think that's called the impulse pipe, and this is the intake pipe. So we're going to need all those when we go to assemble the, you know, this plate that goes here. I'm sorry, it goes like this nonetheless, but yeah, it goes on there, and that all sets straight down on there once we get all set up. But we're not going to do that quite yet. We have to get the piston installed. So let's go ahead and slide this bearing into the connecting rod. And it looks like that thing got a little hot, but you know what, we're just gonna run it. So we're gonna make sure our intake side of the piston has this locating pin for the ring, so we need to make sure that is facing backwards on here, or toward the rear handle. And then we've got our wrist pin here. So I have no clips in this piston on either side, So I pretty much, I probably should go ahead and I'll assemble that from the other side and put this, I'll go ahead and put this snap ring in place on this side right here, on that's, with this handle kind of blocking the way. Then I'll put the snap ring in the other side when I go to finish it up. So let me go ahead and put that snap ring in place. So I'm just orientating myself again. I need to have it on this side, and the plan is to have the open part of the clip facing down. That is what I'm going to go with on this. And if you have experience doing other directions, just let me know and we can pull it back apart and change it. But I've always thought, and again could be wrong, that you would either want the opening completely up or completely down, and this I'm choosing to have it completely down. So I'm just going to use my needle nose here to hold on to it and attempt to push it into place. I'm going to squeeze in on it. These things can be fiddly. Imagine it inside of the saw already. Let's see, yeah, we want to do it like that, let's just say. Okay. Okay, so I finally got it kind of started in there a little bit, and what I'm going to do is just use this screwdriver to kind of push it in the rest of the way, and hopefully not too far. I've done that too. Okay, there we go. So then you can use either your screwdriver or your pliers and kind of rotate it around. So now that I've got the opening at the very bottom, so that's what we want. And that is seated in there all the way around, which is perfect. Yeah, for sure, that's in there. Alright, so now we know that this is the exhaust side. The locating pin is always on the intake side. So we've still got our bearing in place. I haven't oiled anything up yet, but we'll get there. We're going to slide the wrist pin in and try to line everything up just right. This can be a little fiddly. There we go. And I'm just going to use this screwdriver to push it in and seat it the rest of the way. So now the wrist pin is in place. It's seated up against the other clip. So we've got our other clip here, and now we are going to attempt to install this without slinging it across the room, the operating room here. So I'm just gonna kind of halfway start it and hold it with my thumb and hope I can get it in there somehow. Alright, that's kind of laying down in there. I'm going to see if I can push it with this screwdriver and not sling it out like I just did. Alright, let's try that again. It's just part of the fun. Alright, looks like I got it kind of started in there. Alright, there we go. So now we've got it. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now we've got it kind of started, or it's in there. Now I kind of want to just rotate it backwards, but I can't really do it that direction, so I have to go all the way around so I can get the opening at the bottom the way I want it. Just like that. Because you can't go backwards because this tooth part of the spring digs into the piston. So now that it's in place, you know, I just had to go you know, around and round, hooking the screwdriver into this hook part and walking it around there. So now, either way, so that's in place. That is a good thing. That is phenomenal, actually, because the next step is we'll put a little bit of oil on this bearing right in here, so it'll have some when it starts up, just a little bit. We don't need a whole lot. So let's see what's next. We're going to go ahead and assemble the impulse pipe into the cylinder. Here I had taken it out for cleaning purposes. So that goes in. Looks like it could be rotated a little bit to kind of match the way it was. There's a little key on here. Let me show you that actually. And if they're really bad, they'll just rip if you do this to them. But there's a little key, at least on mine where it was installed, right there. And that's going to need to line up with the notch that's in there for the impulse. There we go. Looks like I got it that time. That sits in there nice and flush. And then you go ahead and install the intake boot. This one is not ripped. I checked it out really close. Everything looks good with that. It's in one piece. It's pliable. And then you go ahead and install this plate on here and push it onto there like that. So now your impulse tube is seated and your intake pipe is in place. This is the best way I've found to install them. I have installed the cylinder before and then tried to get this plate on, and that was not fun. So this is how I've been doing it from now on. From then on, I just do it like this, and I don't have any issues at all with it. So the next step with this is to put a little bit of oil on this piston, down inside of here, and get this thing ready to go on there. And then we'll need to install, oh, you know what we're going to do actually first before we do anything? We might pop this ring off, or we can leave the ring on there. We're going to check squish, and we might do this with the base gasket delete. Maybe we'll get a little bump in compression. So let's go ahead and try that first. So we'll go ahead and try to slide this cylinder on here, and I'm not using the spring compressor, which thankfully I didn't need it. It went right on there. So that's how that's going to sit on there. I'm going to go ahead and insert a couple of these cylinder bolts so I can put a little tension on there, and then we can go ahead and check our squish. And because I might run this without a base gasket, I've got a base gasket, but if we can get a little bump in compression and all that good stuff, we might just roll with it like that. I'm going to leave that loose until I get this one tightened up. I think there's one. Yeah, drop one down in here. There we go. Feels like that took. If we do end up going this route, we'll use some 1184 and put this cylinder down on there. So let's see what we got here. Okay, well, it's not hitting. That's a good start. Alright, so let's get some solder and we'll put it right down in the spark plug hole, and we'll see if we get a good reading for the squish. Got me a roll of solder here. Not sure what size this is, but it looks about right. And we'll slide it down in there. Looks like I need a little bit more of a bend on it. There we go. And piston's coming up and rolling through it. Okay, there we go. We got a good reading right there. I want to do this a couple of times to make sure I'm on the right track. That says 45 thousandths. Yeah, let's check that again. So let's check the back side of the piston where there's no transfer ports or anything. Yeah, and I'm definitely in the right place. So here we go, going forward with everything. And yeah, that was really easy to turn over. And there it is right there. If you can see where it's flattened out, right on that very end. That's what we're measuring. So here we go again. We've got 40, 44, 43. So that first 45 is believable. That's about 40 right there. So I'll tell you, I mean, we're just going to go no base gasket on this cylinder and see what kind of performance we get out of it. I'm not expecting it to, be crazy or anything, but it looks like a base gasket delete with a little bit of 1184 goo in there is going to make it work without any troubles. I mean, that's 40 thousandths squish. That's well clear of the 20 thousandths that we were kind of, if that's the minimum, which I have ran them with less than that actually too. So in fact, my 268 has a lot less than that, but it still runs great. I don't have any issues out of it, and it's a phenomenal chainsaw. So what's the next step here? We're going to go ahead and pull this assembly off. We're going to get just a light film of oil on here. We're going to clean this base up really well and get that ready. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, looks like we're ready for the 1184. This has got a little leak in the tube, but I keep on going with it. And this stuff is pretty liquidy, so just be careful using it. It stretches out everywhere and makes a mess, and just remember, a little bit goes a long ways. I like to get that initial part of it gone so I can get to some fresh stuff down here. There we go. Alright, here we go. We're going to start with our cylinder first. And remember, we're just a little bit. And we want to go around here and around here. You get the idea. And we'll just try to keep this as clean as possible. Really haven't found a way to do that, but that's what we got to deal with here. And this is the impulse tube. You want to keep that clear, but you want to be able to seal it all up around there too. So just keep working your way around it. There we go. That's what we were looking for right there. And I got a lot right there. There we go. Yeah. So this is part of the goo gasket game. So I went ahead and covered that up completely. And then what I like to do is I'll get in here with the screwdriver and just clean that impulse tube out, because this goes directly into the crankcase. Maybe I'll use this pick. That seems to work pretty well. There we go. Now that's completely cleaned out. Let that sit for just a second, and then we'll go ahead and get a little bit more of this out and run a nice light bead around here too. All right, we're going to make sure we've got our ring lined up with the alignment pin right here by my thumb. And then we've got a light, film for the gasket on both sides here. So we're going to go ahead and install the cylinder on here. I'm going to go ahead and use a spring compressor for this piston. I know it's just a single ring, but I don't know. It just seems like it's going to work a little bit better for me. But either way, you just hold it on there and then it just slides right on. No fuss. And then you pull that right out of the way. I don't know. Some people don't like them. I like them. But to each his own. If you like it, go for it. If you don't, that's cool too. Okay, so what is holding up this here? Oh, that needs to be on this side. There we go. Alright, so yeah, so this plastic needs to be on this side of the orange right here. And this plastic right here needs to be on this side of the orange, the side you can see. That'll keep it lined up right where it needs to be. Make sure that's all seated in there right. So now we can go ahead and take our cylinder bolts, drop one in right here, get this started. There we go. And then we can go ahead and get one started up here. Let's see if I can show you guys how it's going in there. But there you go. It started. And this is a 4mm Allen head that I'm using. There we go. Alright, we'll leave that loose just a little bit so we can get these other two. Gonna go ahead and install these other two bolts now. Now that I've got all the bolts in, I like to go ahead and, but they're not tightened up yet, I like to go ahead and just run this piston up and down a couple times and make sure I don't have any binding or anything weird going on. And I hear the impulse coming out of this hole right here, which is good. That means I've got the opening. Another reason I like to run it up and down a few times. Perfect. And now I can go ahead and tighten up these bolts. I like to do a little bit at a time on all of them to kind of distribute it, and I'm going in across, across each other kind of pattern. Just putting a little bit more torque each time I run. Just going through all these, just tightening them up just a little bit at a time. And now I'm kind of doing my final torque. Well, that's great. We went ahead and got this on here, and it's all in place, tightened down. All the bolts are tight. We got our goo gasket in there, and that's exactly what we were looking for. It's just a little bit oozing out right there. It's not, pouring out everywhere. That's all we needed. That's perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this thing up for now and let it set, and it'll get, hardened up and set and everything, and then we can go ahead and put our exhaust on here and intake, all that stuff, and move forward with everything else. This episode we're going to be putting all of the stuff kind of back in place. The muffler we're going to get on there with the gasket. Hopefully we have a I think we do have a gasket. If not, either way. We're going to put the carburetor in place. and the air cleaner and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get in here a little closer and we'll get started getting Corey back together again. First thing we're going to do is check out this carburetor, and I think we might have talked about this as a WT170 is the carburetor that came on here originally. So let's go ahead and open this up and see what we have inside of here, and if it needs to be rebuilt, we will. But this is all going to be part of the process of getting this thing going again. And that is really stuck on there. There we go. Yeah, so this has the old, I say old, the older style rubber flaps, and I was going to say I guarantee they are absolutely stuck. So this thing would not pump fuel now. Yeah, these things are trashed. Look how hard they are. And they're supposed to be very pliable. So does not look like we're going to be able to use this old diaphragm and all that. So we're going to have to rebuild that. The micro screen looks okay. We're just going to flush some carb cleaner on that. It looks like it had a little, oh yeah, it had some old dried up 2-cycle or gas or something on there. Just made it kind of turn yellow. Looks like it's flowing okay. You know, that carb cleaner, brake parts cleaner cleaned it right out. No problem at all. So we know we're going to need a fuel pump, gasket, and diaphragm. We're going to go ahead and pull the metering diaphragm and gasket off this side and see how bad this is. I would guess it's going to be hard as a rock, but let's see what we got here. All right. Oh yeah. Gonna grab a razor here and just work my way around very carefully so we don't hurt ourselves and mess up anything inside of there. And there we go. Alright, looks like we got it. Nice thing about that is that'll help hopefully eliminate some of that junk that gets left behind. But let's see if we can. Yeah, it's got my memory and it's really hard. So we're going to need a new diaphragm and gasket for that. Let me go see if I can round up some parts for this carburetor. And it looks like that metering lever has a lot of wear on it too, right there. See how shiny that is? Not sure if you guys can see that or not, but we're going to probably end up putting a new metering lever on there, needle valve, and we'll go ahead and take the jets out and blow some brake parts cleaner through those. So, yep, just a full rebuild here. So we'll go ahead and get this thing going. Let me get some parts together for this, and then we'll be getting this thing fixed. I've got some stuff collected up here. This is some random pieces and parts from other kits that I didn't use these parts out of, but a K20 WAT is what you would need for the rebuild kit for this right here, and that would have the needle and everything. I'm going to try to reuse this needle and everything in here. We're going to pressure test this carburetor anyways. I like to go ahead and clean all these surfaces up with this Scotch-Brite. It seems to help get that good seal on everything when you go to put the pressure test on it, especially if you take just a second to kind of buff this down a little bit. And then this side here, I've just got a little bit of this black residue from the old gasket still there, so we're just going to go around here and clean that up, and then we'll flush it off with some brake parts cleaner. And that'll help seal that up. I didn't get it all off of there. Let's see if we can just gently scrape. Yep. There we go. Looks like we got most of that off. We don't need to go crazy on that. But let's go ahead and flush it off now. There we go. Yeah, see all that junk that came out of it? Right there. So before we go putting any gaskets on there, let's go ahead and take one of these needles out. We'll start with the high needle. And I'm not even counting however many turns it came out. It doesn't matter. We'll take it 1.5 turns out, and that'll be more than enough for us to get it started. So we're just making sure we've got good flow coming out of where the high jet would be. And since I don't know if this carburetor would even remotely run, I'm just there you go. You can see all that junk right there that came out of off of the needle when I wiped it down. Just something I like to do to preventative, you know, kind of, if we got it apart, we might as well clean it out really well. So there's that. Half turn, 1 turn out. And look at this low jet out. And is this just completely rusted or full of dirt? Yes, it appears it was full of dirt. Alright, there we go. Get that out of there. We're going to blow through the low jet. There we go. Seems like we had good flow on that one too. And again, we'll take the spring off, wipe this needle down, and look at all the junk that came off of the needle. I'll try to catch my spring before it runs away. Alright, and let's put the low jet back in place. And we'll do the same with this one too. We'll take it all the way down to very lightly seated, and then back it out. Yeah, that's closed, half, 1 full turn, and we'll take this one out a half, make it easier to start. Go ahead and take that one out a little bit more. That'll be fine right there. So that should have everything we need for our initial carburetor setting, and we've got the jets cleaned out, and we're ready to go ahead and put our gaskets in place. So on the fuel pump side, we're going to start with the one with the little flappers here. And that should go on something like that. That looks about right. And all the little holes line up. And then this guy here, the little tabs line up with each other. And the holes all line up. So that's in place. And then, you know, we should probably go ahead and clean this up too. Oops. While we're at it, let's go ahead and scrub this down. I've had this side of it leak too when we go to pressure test. And it seems like this really helps to get those gaskets to seal well. I got this all cleaned up. We'll go ahead and get this installed onto the carburetor body. And that takes the large Phillips slotted screw. Go ahead and do this side first, because we're going to go ahead and pressure test it now that we haven't even done the diaphragm side, the metering diaphragm. Got our pressure tester here. Go ahead and hook this up to the fuel inlet to the carburetor. Make sure this valve is closed, because that'll trick you sometimes. Sit here pumping and pumping and pumping, and you're never building up pressure. Alright, here we go. Let's try this thing out. I usually take it up to about 0.1. It looks like it's losing a little bit. It could be that needle valve not closed all the way. Yeah, Yeah, I think it's that needle valve not seating. Yeah, it looks like it's losing a little pressure, kind of slow there. So what I'll do is I'll get my container of gasoline and I'll dip this down in there and we'll see where the leak is. This is some used 2-stroke. This is enough for us to see where we're leaking from. And if it's on this side with the gaskets, I'm really not too tore up about that. Looks like it could be coming around this fuel hose. There you go. You can see it leaking around right here. Turn down on it just a little bit more. That might be all it needed. Yep, and that is all it needed. We're nice and tight now. There's just a couple little small bubbles, and I'm pretty sure you can see it right there. There you go. Pretty sure we're going to be okay with that once that gasket gets a little gas on it. Alright, well, that took care of that side. Next up, we're going to go ahead and put the gasket on here, and then our metering diaphragm. And that just lays right on there just like that. Then we've got our little cover here. Clean this cover off before we put it back onto the carburetor. Kind of lay that in place there. At least I've got one screw in it now that'll hold everything together while I get the other screws in place. One last test with the carburetor pressure tester. Sometimes I'll pump it up and try to put the cover on while it's all pumped up, but let's go ahead and see if it'll hold now that it's assembled. Yes, it holds just fine, no problems at all. We'll go ahead and call that good. Carburetor's done, we're ready to go ahead and reinstall it. Gonna need our filter holder and some of this random hardware we have here. I know we're definitely gonna need, oh, you know what we need to do? We need to put these 2 bolts in place first, right? We need to get these guys installed right here. One goes here and one goes here. 4mm Allen wrench. I got those installed, and then we are going to need to get our carburetor and these 2 bolts here. So let's see here if I can remember how this thing goes back together. I think the fuel line, let's look at our cover here. Okay, so the adjustments go on that side. And the choke, yeah. So I'm just using the cover as a template. Looks like the adjustments for the high and the low are on the right hand side, and the throttle is over there like that. And then our choke goes into the right hand side. Yep, and that goes into here. So that sets our choke, and then our throttle goes into this side here. Perfect. Okay, so always good to reorientate yourself. It's been a few days. So once we get our carburetor kind of tucked into place with the adjustment screws where they should be, where you can see them through the holes and everything, then we can go ahead and move forward with getting our bolt installed like that. Perfect. And then we can go ahead and get our gasket ready to be installed like that. There we go. Alright, so now we have this complete assembly. It looks like it'll be easier just to plug in this fuel line while we're here and everything's opened up. And what does the fuel line tuck into that notch? I guess it does, doesn't it? And possibly that electrical line right there, that ground wire. There we go. So it looks like that all goes into place like that. So this is the setup. I've got the throttle connected into the carburetor, bottom part of it there. I've got the bolts, the screws through the carburetor, this air filter housing, carburetor, and the gasket. I've got the fuel line hooked up, and I went ahead and got the choke hooked up to here and goes down and through here, and the fuel line clips into this little notch that is underneath of the choke lever. So that whole assembly sets right up against there, ready to go. Once you get that in place, you can check to see if your carburetor, your throttle is working, and it is. The choke is working, and it is. So let's go ahead and tighten this all down, and then we'll give it a function check real quick before we say everything is good to go. There we go. Alright, got that tightened up. And that's tightened up. Not too tight, but tight enough. There we go. Choke works. Throttle works. Choke works. Throttle works. Great. Got an extra intake pipe here. So the last thing we need to do for this carburetor, or this intake side, is go ahead and install this bolt that goes into this air filter holder. Alright, that's tightened up. And then we've got our air filter. We'll go ahead and install that while we are here. Might need to have that pulled out if I remember. That'll help make it a little bit easier. Tuck that fuel line underneath that stop switch. And that is not clipped in all the way in the bottom. Now it is. Okay. Yep. It looks like all that works now. Perfect. Alright, so that is together. That's amazing. That wasn't super easy, but not super hard either. Next up, we'll go ahead and get our muffler installed. Let's see where we're at with that. We need our bolts and this metal plate that holds the bolts onto the, which is the gasket, I guess. Also, that's what it looks like. Yeah, that's what was up against there. So we need to go ahead and pry this plate off and get these bolts out of here. So let's do that. I don't know if this is glued down. Oh, it's just stuck. Okay. This is some very thin metal, but I think we got it. Probably just a sheet of aluminum or something that they punch out. Yeah. Pretty flimsy. But we got that off so we can get our studs out. Let's go ahead and wipe these down a little bit. Alright, well, this gasket just kind of stained. It's not super dirty or anything. So go ahead and get our studs in place. And then we'll go ahead and get our gasket installed, or whatever you want to call this thing. There we go. And then we can go ahead and drop our muffler on here. I cleaned this up really well there. And then there's two 8mm head nuts that hold the muffler on, and I believe there's a bracket also. There is a bracket. So this bracket needs to be in place, and we'll have to take that bolt out. I'm just going to get these started here. So 5/16 or 8mm on these heads, and then the bolt on the side is a 4mm for the felling spike slash bolt for the plate that holds the muffler on. There we go. And that just tucks behind there and goes back inside of there like that. Go ahead and tighten these up. Perfect. Alright, so we got all that done. We're ready for a spark plug, and pretty much get this thing fired up. So we'll take this outside and see if we can get a good first start and see what we can get with it. I'm going to put a little Opti 2 in here, 40-to-1. Go ahead and put some bar oil in here too. That should be plenty for what we need. Alright, let's go see if we can start this up. So here we go. This will be the first time we've started this up since it was donated to the Chainsaw Hospital, but we're going to flip our stop switch to the run position, and it already is because I was checking for spark, I guess. But we're going to go ahead and pull the choke out and make sure it engages the, and it does, that's good. So it engages the high idle. And then I'm just going to pull on this a few times, just kind of gently. That should hopefully get the fuel primed into the carburetor. We'll say 10 pulls. All right, well, here we go. Let's see what we got. Perfect. All right, so that it barked a little bit on the third pull. I pushed the choke in, left it at high idle. It's automatically set when you pull it out. Let's see what we got. Okay, well, the oiler is working, so that's awesome. Something else I don't have to fix. And let's see, what else do we have? We've got, oh, it shut off, which is not surprising. I've got my screwdriver here. Remember, we set it probably a little rich. Let's go ahead and dial that low jet back a little bit, maybe that half turn that I needed. I'll leave the high a little rich just for break-in and running it. Let's see what we got now. It should bump the idle up just a little bit. Sounds like that clutch drum bearing needs to be greased up a little bit. Oiling, idling, revs up. Super exciting that it was that easy. Well, not that easy, but I mean, to get it running was uneventful. So let's see if it restarts with one pull. I've got the ignition switch on, no choke, no high idle or anything. It does. Very nice. What we're going to be doing is getting this bar cleaned up and looking good. We do have an issue that we need to actually cover with this. You can, if you look down the bar rails, it would be this one right here, and you lay something on top of there. I'm just pushing straight down. Look how off that is. Those rails are like crazy at an angle there. So these are gonna, this side is gonna need to be, this side over here is gonna need to be ground down and leveled out with this side because it's way out of square. So we'll use an angle grinder to do the majority of the removal, and we'll do the bar rail dressing tool to finish it off. So that's what we'll do with that. But first we're going to use our chainsaw curette. If you are interested in a Chainsaw Hospital chainsaw curette, be sure to shoot me an email, and I've actually got a video about this in a playlist, and I'll be sure to put a link right here for you to check that out too. So here we go. We're just going to use this real quick. We're going to go down through here. You can see everything that it pulls out, all that gunk, and go down this side here too. Not too bad over there. Clean out our oil hole. That's what this does right here. So we can clean that out really well, and this side is clean. And then the other nice thing is you just lay it flat on your bar, and you see all that gunk that comes off of there, so it's like a little scraper too. And that side is pretty much cleaned up. And then over here we've got this side here, and you can see, there you go, all this right here just got cleaned off with the chainsaw curette. So very useful tool, and there's a lot of other features on here, like the depth gauges that are, you know, right here on these edges here, and it also helps you set your raker height. So either way, we're going to get in here. Once we got this thing cleaned up, I'm going to wipe it down with a rag, and I've got one right here. Let's wipe this down real quick. So there we go. Yeah, it looks better already. Look, nice and clean down here, and we got our grooves cleaned out, and I think we can get this back together and operational. So let's go over to trauma 2, and that's where we're going to be doing our grinding on the bar with the this tool right here. This is a sander polisher from Milwaukee. Very nice. Works perfect for this. We're going to take there's some lips on here. That's something else the chainsaw curette can do. It actually, so if you've got a lip on here and you slide this up and you see how it's just stopping, you know there's a lip right there that you need to remove. So you can check it with that. In case it is sharp and you don't want to run your fingers across there, you can use this to check that. Another useful use of that tool. So the sprocket nose looks good. You know, something else we need to inspect while we're checking this thing out. Is it even worth putting our time into? I think so. Alright, well, let's head over to trauma 2, and we will work a little bit more on getting this thing cleaned up. So here we are. Trauma 2 has a bench vise on here, so that's kind of nice. This far rail over here, the one on this side, is the one that's really tall. So what I'm going to use is the sander polisher. I've got some 60 grit on here. The plan is just riding right along here and keeping it, you know, perpendicular to the bar. So that means we'll try to keep it square with this face of the bar here, and then that way we'll be able to knock this down quickly, and then we'll go ahead and use our saw bar dresser, and then once we get all that done, we can use our bar rail closer to make sure we have everything kind of squeezed in there nice and tight for that chain to ride in there. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Feels like I've got it pretty good up here, but right in this area right here, I'm still not down to this side. So I'm going to need to knock this down a little bit more. Okay, I think I've got it pretty close for this side. Now we'll go ahead and use the saw bar dresser. And that's what it looks like. This one's from Laser, but you know, you can get them anywhere or by different manufacturers. So what we'll do now is we'll just slide this, tighten the bar up in the vise a little bit more. We'll go ahead and slide this right along the bar rails here. And the idea is to knock down all the rough spots from the grinder, but the grinder really helped get this side down low enough to where I don't have to do it all with this file. So once we get the bar rails pretty much at the same height, you know, and level like this, we can go ahead and use our file, our bar dresser, to actually remove the burrs too, which I could have done that earlier. Maybe I should have, but either way, you put the rail, you know, the dresser on there like that, and you can go up the side of the rail and it knocks that burr off. I do this sometimes with this tool, but most of the time I like to do it with the grinder, and I'll just take it out of the vise by hand, and what I'll do is I'll flip the bar around like this and just hit it like this. There we go. So it just does it a lot faster. You know, there's still one right there. All right. That's where it was the worst. There we go. All right, got that all the way up to the tip. Now I can just flip the bar over and do from this direction now. There we go. And this is just a sample curette, but you can see now everything is good to go. So that side is done. I'm going to flip the bar over now, and I'm going to work on this side. Got both sides of the bar all cleaned up, looking good, deburred, squared up. This is ready to go. While we've got the bar in the vise and trauma 2, we're going to go ahead and check our bar rails, the tightness of them, and go ahead and tighten them up if we need to, or we'll just make a few runs with this, because this will pretty much set what you want. And all I'm doing is just loosening this up, putting it onto the bar back here, tightening it up just a little bit, and then running it forward right along the bar. And this little gauge here will keep it from going down too far onto this, you know, the side of the bar. It'll keep these bearings up at the top of it. And then I said how much I want to squeeze it with how tight I make this handle right here. And that might be all we really need. But we'll go one more time with it just for good measure. We stopped with the handle about right here. Probably just go a little bit more with it. Just like that. That should be plenty. Go ahead and flip the bar over and do the other side too. And just a little bit at a time. Don't want to do too much. that's feeling like it should be about it. What I'll do is I'll go grab a little piece of chain and we'll test fit the bar and make sure we don't have any really loose spots or tight spots in there. Got us a piece of new chain here, and we're just going to lay it in here. You can see it's a little loose, but there's no tight spots either. Right, well, that's just dirt. So yeah, that seems like it's tracking along pretty well. And what we want is a little bit of space. Yeah, that is still pretty loose. And this bar might just be flat wore out, but either way, we're going to get it tuned up as much as we can to use it. Yeah, it might be a time for a new bar for this one, but there we go. Let's try that out now. Feels a little bit better. Still pretty sloppy in there. Alright, well, that might be as best as we can do with it. If it is worn out, it's just worn out. But we'll be able to use it, get it on there, make a few test cuts with it, but be in the market for a new bar. Got our bar looking pretty good. We went through everything and squeezed our bar rails. You can see how thin this side is compared to this side, so that's a problem. I don't think we'll be able to fix that with squeezing the bar rails back together, but this side's looking pretty good. We'll probably end up putting this side down, this side right here, so we'll have the engraving stuff on the inside. Okay, so that looks like the bottom is where you'll get the most wear, so the top will be just what it is. So either way, over here in this jar I have, move the chainsaw curette out of the way, I have the chain soaking in this gasoline, and hopefully that will help clean off any resin that was on here, because it was loaded with, it looked like pine resin. I don't know, but that's my guess. But either way, I went ahead and left it in there for a little while, and it seems like it cleaned it up significantly compared to what it was. So either way, what we're going to do is take this over to the grinder now. This looks like a pretty decent chain. This is a Carlton, I believe a Carlton chain. Yeah. It says K3 on there. I'm guessing that's 50 thousandths gauge, 325 pitch. For that, we might run this. We might run something else. We'll go ahead and run this. Why not? So what we'll do is, you can see the absolute carnage that is going on these cutters. And this one is smashed to death right here. This one over here is almost square at the tip of it. There's no hook to it at all right here. This one right here where my thumb is. So that's looking rough. I guarantee this is why this motor burned up from overheating it running a dull chain. So either way, we'll let that air out a little bit, and then we'll take it over to the grinder and put a nice edge on there and set our rakers and get this thing ready to cut. Got our chain all finished up here, looking good. Got some nice profile to the teeth, and went ahead and knocked those rakers back to go ahead and get it ready for installation. But first, before we do all that, we're going to get this clutch off of here and grease up the clutch drum bearing because I heard it kind of howling a little bit. So we're going to do righty-loosey on this, and I've got a 15 millimeter on an impact. So let's see if we can get this thing off of here. I haven't tried to pull it off yet. There we go. Got that. And there's no washers or anything underneath there. There's our 3257 pin, and we'll go ahead and inspect that. Probably due for a new one of those too, but we'll ride with that one for now. Pretty heavy duty clutch drum bearing there. Let's grab a little dab of grease. Put that on here. Not much, just a little, and it'll spread itself around everywhere. So we can go ahead and get this back in here. Install it on there. We'll see if that sounds any better. And lefty tighty on this clutch drum or clutch assembly here. And what I'm going to do is pull the recoil out a little bit so I can hold it in my hands, and then I'm going to do lefty tighty to tighten it up. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll set it with the chain brake when we go ahead and get this thing fired up. So we are ready now that we have the bar all cleaned up. Remember, we were going to put the writing on the inside, so we need to make sure we do that. Okay, so that's good. Got that on there, and then we've got our chain here. So we've got our chain here. We're going to go ahead and install that. Make sure our teeth are facing the right way with the little hooks on the top facing away from the saw and the hooks on the bottom facing toward the saw. So we'll go ahead and string this around the bar. I don't normally do this on its side, but I know it'd be nice for you guys to be able to see this. It's pretty much how I do it on its side. It's just we're laying down like this right now. So let's see what we got here. There we go. I just wanted to, I pulled the chain a little bit so it rotated the clutch some, and then that was able to kind of synchronize everything up so I could get the adjuster in the right place. That's all we need for now. We'll go ahead and get our brake assembly recoil, or brake assembly and side cover installed. I think it turned out nice, didn't it? All the dirt got cleaned off of it, and it'll help it run cooler too, since we got all that other mess cleaned up. So we'll go ahead and adjust our chain tension, and we'll need our ratchet scrunch or something similar. So what we'll do is we'll put this on the back one, and we'll pick up on the handle back here. Let's run it a few times just to kind of get everything settled in. There we go. So it looks like I've got a little slop down here. It's got a little bit of play. So what I'm going to do is tighten this up. Righty tighty on the screw in the front here. Just a little bit, and we want to make sure it's got a nice little snap back. That might even be too tight. I'm going to leave it right there. Yeah, that feels a little too tight. Well, we'll run it like that, and if it loosens up, you know what we can do? We can always just tighten it back up. So either way, we've got that, and then we'll go ahead and put a little tension. I'm picking up on the back handle here off the table, and the nose over here is touching the table, so I've got a little upward pressure on the bar. So that's why I like these ratchet scrunches. You can really just get them tightened right up. Go back and double check that one. And this thing looks complete now. So exciting. All right. Look at that. There you go. So we'll take this outside and we'll go ahead and fire it up and see if we can find, I think I've got a little piece of maple. It's kind of a little rotten and a little punky. in there. You know, that soft wood that's really, you can push with your fingernail. But we'll go ahead and try this thing out over there and see if we can make a few cuts. All right, here's Corey. Got it all together. We're over here in the woods. I've got a piece of maple right here you'll get to see here in just a second. And let's see how many pulls it'll take to start this thing up. Been a few days, but we'll pull the choke out and that'll set the choke. We've got gas and oil in it. We should be good to go with that. And here we go. Let's see. All right, well there's one pull. I'm gonna push the choke off. Seems a little rich to me, so what I'm going to do is lean out that low side. Seems like it's loading up with a lot of gas. So I'm just going to righty-tighty that in about a quarter of a turn. So let's see if we can get this thing fired up again. Still seems a little rich. Going to go ahead and lean that out a little bit more. I did have it out that extra half turn, so let's go ahead and turn that high side in a little bit more too. See if that makes a difference. Just doing that so I can set the clutch that we removed earlier. That should be all it needs. So I can hear it four-stroking at the highest RPM, which is good. I don't know exactly what I need until I get it in the wood here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to get the camera adjusted so you guys can see what I'm doing here. And we'll make a few runs with it and see what it sounds like. Let's go ahead and start this thing up again and see what all, you know, it looks like it's oiling too. That's good. So we're getting plenty of oil to the chain, nice and shiny. The teeth, you know, they turned out great with the grinder. So all right, we are ready. I've got some stuff I need to clean up here real quick, so let's just use it for that and see what we got. want you to check out these chips here. They look really good, especially for this junky wood that we're running in. All right, well, what do you think about that? That 51 is rocking. I mean, I have zero complaints. What an awesome firewood saw these would make if you can, you know, find one around, which they're around. There were a lot of them made. But yeah, I am totally stoked. I've got a few more projects planned for this. I've got some fuel testing, 2-cycle oil testing. So be sure to stay tuned for those types of things. And I'm going to consider Corey. I mean, we just ran it, what, back to back, 6 cuts or something like that, goes back to idle. I'm sure there's a little bit more exactly, you know, precision fine tuning we need to do, but Corey is done. I'm super excited because I kind of wanted to have one of these. I keep a 55 in my pickup truck that I drive, you know, all over the place when I need a truck. And I really wanted to have a 51, 55 chassis not in the truck, back at the chainsaw hospital or something, where I could get my hands on it and test it against whatever. You know, it's kind of a benchmark. Where do these saws land against a very common saw that a lot of people have? But runs great, super excited. Chain pulled great chips. The cookie, it cut straight. You saw that last cut. I just let it kind of go by itself, nice and straight on that cut. So I burn these, don't worry about it. I chop these up and throw them in the wood stove, so no problems with that. I'll take those back to the house now, actually, and go ahead and get them ready to get processed. So either way, guys, thank you so much for watching and following along in the series for Corey and all the other series that you guys watch. I really appreciate that. And so yeah, that's enough, you know, stuff we had to fix on this. It really was kind of an easy repair, but either way, thank you so much for watching, and remember, keep your chain sharp and stay safe.